I came home on my lunch break and found my fiancé in the bathtub with my sister. I locked the door and called her husband. Come now, you need to see this. When he walked in, oh, the day my life shattered began like any other lunch break. I just needed to grab some forgotten contract files, but what I walked into, that was pure, gut-wrenching betrayal. I wasn't expecting anything unusual, just a quick dash in and out before heading back to the office. But the moment I stepped through my front door, this weird, unsettling quietness hit me. It was so sharp, it felt like the house itself exhaled something it had been holding in. Then I saw it. My sister's car, parked all crooked in my driveway. The hallway lights were on. Even though I knew, absolutely knew, I'd turned them off that morning. And then, from upstairs, I heard it, the faint echo of running water. My master bathroom. The same one my fiancé, Thomas, used every single morning. That was the exact second my stomach dropped. The exact moment the world I knew began to tremble beneath my feet. Because deep down, I already knew the truth, even before I heard the soft, breathy laughter drifting through the steam. My sister was in that bathtub, and my fiancé was in there with her. I froze at the foot of the stairs, utterly paralyzed. All I could hear was the water patterning, slipping down porcelain, blending with low voices, his deeper tone, her soft reply. I didn't want to believe it. My mind kept begging for a logical explanation, anything that didn't involve this unthinkable betrayal. But my heart, it was already ahead of me. It knew the truth long before my brain even allowed the thought to form. Something inside me cracked open. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a thread finally snapping inside a sweater you've worn for years. I took a breath so slow it felt foreign, and I began climbing the stairs. On the third step, a memory flashed. Just this morning, Thomas kissing my cheek, telling me he loved me. On the fifth, I thought of Eliza, my sister, laughing with me over brunch just last Sunday, her hand wrapped around mine like she was the best sister in the world. By the time I reached the landing, I wasn't thinking anymore. I was simply walking into the moment that would split my life into a before and an after. The bathroom door was cracked open, just enough for steam to curl lazily into the hallway. I could see the fogged mirror, the glow of soft white lights, and the edge of the tub. My hand pushed before I could convince myself not to, and the door swung wider. There they were. Thomas leaned back against the porcelain, his arms stretched comfortably along the sides of the tub, wet hair plastered to his forehead. Eliza sat between his legs, her shoulders bare, her fingers tracing patterns across his chest as though she owned him. They were laughing about something, some private joke, until Eliza's head tilted and her gaze caught mine in the mirror. Her smile froze first. Then Thomas's followed as he turned to see me, standing in the doorway like a ghost they had conjured. For a moment, none of us spoke. The water churned around them. The steam curled upward. Droplets slid down their skin. The entire scene was obscene in its intimacy. Painfully familiar and hideously foreign all at the same time. Eliza's voice cracked first. "And Maddie, this isn't, don't move," I said. And even I didn't recognize the calm in my own voice. It cut through the room like cold steel. Thomas's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His eyes were wide with disbelief. No, not disbelief. Panic. I stepped forward and reached for the small key that hung beside the towel rack. We never used it, not until now. I closed the door on their stunned faces and turned the lock. The metal clicked with a sound so sharp it sliced something inside me free. "Maddie!" Eliza shrieked from the other side. "What are you doing? Let us out." Thomas banged his palm against the door. "Meline, don't be ridiculous. We can talk." "No," I said, backing away from the door with a stillness that felt utterly unnatural. "You'll stay exactly where you are." I walked into my bedroom, shut the door, and picked up my phone with hands that were steady in a way they absolutely shouldn't have been. My body felt like it was floating, my heartbeat oddly distant. I scrolled through my contacts until I reached the name I needed, Grant Rowe. My sister's husband. The man who trusted her completely. The man whose entire world was about to collapse. He answered on the second ring, cheerful, completely unaware of the wreckage forming under his feet. "Hey, Maddie. What's up?" "Grant," I said softly. I need you to come to my house right now. A beat of confusion. Is everything okay? No, I said. But you need to see it for yourself. I hung up before he could ask anything else. Down the hall, Thomas and Eliza kept alternating between begging and shouting. It didn't matter. Nothing they said mattered anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed Thomas and I had shared for 3 years. And I let the wave of realization wash over me. The signs had been there. Little ones. Thomas stepping outside to take calls he claimed were work-related. Eliza dropping by more often, asking if Thomas was home, with a tone that now made my skin crawl. That moment at Thanksgiving when I walked into the kitchen and found them standing far too close, their conversation stopping so abruptly it felt like hitting a wall. But I trusted them. God help me, I trusted them both. Footsteps approached the door, and Thomas spoke again, softer this time. Maddie, please open the door. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I replied. Silence. And then Eliza's voice, trembling. It didn't mean anything. It was comfort. It was betrayal, I said, standing up. The doorbell rang downstairs. My heartbeat picked up for the first time since I opened that bathroom door. I took one last breath and descended the stairs. Grant stood at the door in his work uniform, confusion etched across his face. When I opened the door fully, he saw my expression, and his grew still. Maddie, he whispered. What happened? They're upstairs, I said. Together. He blinked. Once. What do you mean by in my bathtub? I said. I locked them in. Grant's entire posture faltered. His hands dropped to his sides. For a moment, I saw something inside him break. Show me, he whispered. We walked up the stairs together. Neither of us spoke. On the landing, he heard Eliza's voice through the door, her pleading, her panic, and something in him collapsed completely. He reached for the doorknob, but I touched his arm. Don't. Not yet. He swallowed hard, staring at the door as though it were the edge of a cliff. How long? He asked, his voice cracking. I don't know, I whispered. But long enough. Another blow landed against the door from inside, followed by Thomas's voice. Maddie, what are you doing? This is insane. Grant flinched as if the words struck him physically. He leaned his forehead against the wall, hands trembling at his sides. She was my wife, he whispered. My wife. I lowered my gaze. He was supposed to be my husband. That was the moment the air shifted between us, not romantically, but painfully, deeply human. Two people standing on the same battlefield, wounded by the same two weapons. Grant straightened slowly. His voice grew steady. What do we do now? I looked at the locked bathroom door. The steam still whispered beneath it. The muffled voices inside were fading into frantic whispers, panic sinking its claws deeper. We start, I said quietly, by letting the truth destroy the right people this time. And for the first time since discovering them in my bathtub, I felt something new rising inside me. Not rage, not grief, but a kind of clarity so sharp it almost hurt. This wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. The moment my life broke open and finally made room for the woman I was meant to become. Grant didn't breathe for a full 3 seconds. His eyes stayed locked on the closed bathroom door, as if staring hard enough could force reality to rewrite itself, undoing what neither of us could unsee. The muffled water sounds had quieted, now replaced by the frantic rustle of towels and low, panicked arguing. Their voices bled through the cracks, sharp, desperate, and guilty. He turned to me slowly, his voice hollow. Meline, my wife is in there with your fiancé. My sister, I corrected softly. Your wife is my sister, Grant. The words tasted like rust on my tongue. His chest rose and fell in uneven breaths as he backed away from the door, bracing his hand on the hallway wall. No, Eliza wouldn't. She couldn't. I wished I were wrong. He kept shaking his head as if denial alone might reverse what we both heard and seen. But then Eliza's voice carried through the door, high and cracking with fear. You said she never comes home at lunchtime. You said we'd be safe today. Grant froze entirely. His pupils constricted, and his lips parted as though the oxygen had been punched out of him. That was the moment the truth settled in. A brutal, final, shattering truth. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This wasn't spur-of-the-moment temptation. It was routine, calculated, scheduled, expecting me to never walk through my own front door. A white-hot wave rippled under my skin. Not rage, not yet, but the kind of clarity that comes right before something explodes. Grant swallowed hard, staring at the door like a man witnessing the burial of everything he believed in. She's been doing this here? His voice cracked on the last word. In my home, I whispered. In my bathtub. And with him, he added, bitterness slowly replacing shock. Inside, Thomas hissed back. You're the one who begged to come over today. We should have waited until tonight, like usual. Grant flinched. Tonight, he echoed, unable to hide the devastation in his voice. I stepped closer, laying a steady hand on his arm. You're not hearing that wrong. He exhaled shakily, eyes burning with realization. Then he straightened, shoulders stiffening with a fragile but growing resolve. I need to know how long this has been happening. So do I. My voice was calm. Too calm. And that worried me more than if I had been screaming. I knew this calm. It was the stillness that comes right before a storm knows it no longer needs to be loud. I walked into my bedroom and opened the nightstand drawer where Thomas always tossed his phone when he showered. It wasn't there. For a moment, my pulse jumped until I spotted it on the dresser, plugged in, screen quietly glowing with notifications. He hadn't even bothered to lock it. Years of trusting partners in his past meant he never saw a reason to set a passcode. And I, fool that I was, thought that transparency meant something noble. Grant lingered in the doorway. Do you want me to step out? No, I said. You deserve the truth as much as I do. I tapped the screen. It opened instantly. And the world came apart a second time. His messages weren't in the main inbox. They were neatly tucked into archived. A small attempt at hiding what he must have believed I'd never go looking for. But they were there. Hundreds. I clicked on the thread labeled simply. The first message at the top was from yesterday. Can't stop thinking about you. Miss the way you laugh when you're nervous. See you soon. Grant let out a sharp breath behind me. I scrolled further. 3 days ago. She'll never check my phone. Relax. And the kids won't notice I'm gone for an hour. Eliza's reply, I love that you make me feel alive. Grant pressed a fist to his mouth. He looked like he might be sick. You okay? I asked softly. No, he whispered. But keep going. I scrolled deeper. Way deeper. 3 months back. The earliest flirtation surfaced like a knife from the murky dark. Last night was incredible. Wish we didn't have to sneak around. Wish things were simpler. Eliza had answered with a photo, shoulders bare, smiling in a way she never smiled around me. Grant looked away, jaw tight. It wasn't just physical, he whispered. She was connected to him. My stomach tightened. Emotionally invested. But the worst part wasn't the sweetness of their messages. It was the strategy. The careful planning. The mentions of my schedule. Mads works late Thursday safe. She has a client call at 2. House empty. She doesn't check bank statements often. Or the way Eliza mocked me. Your fiancé is too trusting. She'd never suspect us. She thinks I'm helping you with wedding stress. Cute. I stopped breathing for a moment. Then I came across one that nearly buckled my knees. Once we're married, she'll merge finances. We'll have access to her inheritance soon. Ball rose in my throat. Grant stepped close enough to see the words. Then he whispered, she knew about your inheritance. I must have told her months ago. When I was thinking about setting up a trust fund, I whispered. And she used that information to plan this. My hands trembled, not from fear, but something colder, sharper. A clarity that burned. I scrolled again. More messages. Worse messages. We should tell them soon. I feel bad. Not yet. If we wait, she won't get half in a split. Let me secure everything first. Then we can be together openly. Grant stared at me, eyebrows knitting in horror. He wasn't just cheating. He was preparing to strip you of everything you own. It seems so. But why would she? Why would Eliza? She's always envied me, I whispered. But I never thought she hated me. He rested a hand on the dresser, studying himself. And I never thought she was capable of this kind of cruelty. A loud thud hit the bathroom door. Maddie! Eliza screamed. Eliza, you can't do this. Please open the door. Her desperation was almost surreal. She sounded more terrified about being trapped than about what she'd done. Thomas's voice followed, rough and urgent. Meline, this is insane. Just let us talk. I glanced at Grant. He met my eyes with a haunted expression. They're losing control, he said. And they know it. Something shifted in him. Something hard and resolute. He stood straighter, wiped his face once, and breathed deeply. We need to gather everything, he said. Every message, every detail. They plan to dismantle our lives. We're going to dismantle theirs. He was right. I sat on the bed and kept scrolling. Each message was another fracture in the illusion I'd lived in. Another revelation of how long they'd been weaving their deceit. One in particular made Grant visibly tense. If her sister keeps pushing, we'll move sooner. We can even consider full custody later. Grant froze. Custody. Custody. She wanted my children. She wanted your life, I said quietly. Just like she wanted mine. His face flushed with disbelief and fury. She would have torn my boys from me. Eliza doesn't see consequences, I whispered. Only desires. He paced the room once, twice, then leaned over the dresser, gripping the edge until his knuckles whitened. She manipulated me into believing we could fix things, he whispered. She held my hand 2 nights ago and told me she wanted to rebuild our marriage. And then she came here the next day, I said. With my fiancé. And planned a future with him. And planned to rewrite our lives without us, he finished. We stood there in a silence that wasn't empty. It was full. Too full. Full of betrayal, full of clarity, full of a shared wound that neither of us asked for. Inside the bathroom, their arguing escalated. This is your fault. Eliza shrieked. You said she never comes home. You insisted on today. Thomas snapped back. We could have waited. I'm tired of waiting, she screamed. I'm tired of being the secret. Grant's eyes widened. They've done this before. Many times. Yes, I whispered. And then the blow that sealed their fate. You promised me we'd start our new life soon. Eliza cried. Once her inheritance is secure. Grant inhaled sharply. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, something inside me had settled. I looked at Grant. We need to record everything else they say. He nodded. I started the voice memo app and set the phone on the floor beside the door. You know what hurts the most, Grant whispered. I didn't see any of this. I thought we were building something back. I didn't see it either, I said. Because we loved people who didn't love us back. He exhaled, long and trembling. So, what do we do now? I slowly straightened, feeling the weight of my own bones grounding me. Now, I said, we take control of the story. He nodded once, jaw tight with conviction. And we make sure, I added, they never take anything from us again. Grant stared at me with a look I can only describe as recognition, like he was seeing the beginning of something neither of us had known we were capable of. Somewhere behind that locked door, my sister whimpered. Thomas cursed under his breath. Their panic filled the hallway like a thick, choking fog. But here, standing beside Grant, with the truth glowing cold and sharp in my hands, I felt something powerful rising. Not revenge, not rage. A reclamation. A return to myself. A new beginning born from a bathtub full of lies. And this time, I wasn't going to be gentle. I stood in the center of my bedroom with Thomas's phone in my hand, the screen glowing with the kind of truth that severs entire lifetimes. Grant hovered near the doorway, arms crossed tightly over his chest, as if holding himself together took physical restraint. The air felt thick enough to choke on, heavy with steam from the locked bathroom, and heavier still with betrayal. I scrolled back to the inheritance messages, reading them again because part of me still wanted to believe my eyes were lying. But they weren't. Every word stared back like a bruise I couldn't cover. We'll have access to her inheritance soon. Once we secure everything, we can move forward. She'll sign whatever he asks after the wedding. A coldness crawled beneath my skin. Grant stepped closer. Madeline. What exactly did they mean by inheritance? I hesitated. Talking about it made it more real. My parents left me part of their estate. Savings. A share of my dad's business. And the deed to that lake property up north. Grant blinked slowly. And Eliza knew all of this. She's my sister, I whispered. I told her everything. I didn't realize she was keeping notes. A humorless breath escaped him, half laugh, half gasp. She didn't just betray you. She used your love like leverage. Another message lit the screen as I scrolled. After we're married, she'll merge accounts. Easy. She's too innocent to question it. Too innocent. Too trusting. Too naive. The words clawed into me, one by one. A loud thud hit the bathroom door, followed by Thomas shouting, Meline, you can't just lock us in here. This is illegal. Grant snorted. He's worried about the law now? After plotting a financial ambush? He pushed off the wall, pacing once across the room. Unbelievable. I swallowed and opened the email folder, something I had been too scared to check, but I needed to know if he planned to gut my life financially. I wanted the full blueprint. Drafted prenup. Asset protection strategy. Post-marriage account merge plan. Projected transfer timeline. My stomach tightened so sharply I had to sit down. Grant moved to my side, not touching me, but close enough that I felt a measure of solidarity in the space between us. What is it? Look at this, I whispered. He leaned over my shoulder, eyes darting across the email. The prenup draft was dated 2 weeks ago, composed by a lawyer I had never even heard of. It outlined that in case of divorce, I would get nothing from Thomas's assets, and he would retain marital rights to mine. There was even a note, get her to sign before honeymoon. Catch her when she's emotional. I shook my head, my throat tightening. He didn't just cheat. He architected the downfall of my entire future. Grant squeezed his eyes shut. Meline, I'm so sorry. A sound from the bathroom made us both turn. Eliza was crying now. Loud, gasping sobs that were nothing like sorrow, more like fear. Meline, she wailed. Please, we need to talk. But I didn't move. Instead, Grant walked to the door and leaned his ear close. They're panicking, he murmured. And scared people make mistakes. I stared at Thomas's phone, fingers trembling now for the first time. Let's see how deep this goes. We returned to the message thread, scrolling further. 6 weeks earlier. The townhouse is perfect. 3 bedrooms, close to the lake. Kids can visit. Plenty of room for us. Kids. Us. My lungs constricted. Grant frowned. She planned to move my sons into a new life with him. A life without me. His voice cracked. She didn't want to share custody. She wanted to take them. The betrayal had teeth and claws and a face I had loved for 32 years. I inhaled slowly. Eliza always wanted what I had, but I never imagined she'd go this far. She wanted your life, Grant said quietly. And she used Thomas to get it. Inside the bathroom, the argument between them was escalating. This is your fault. Eliza cried. You promised me she never came home before 1. Thomas snapped. You're the one who insisted on today. We had time. We didn't need to rush. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being the secret, she shrieked. Grant's eyes burned. She wanted to be the main character. And she didn't care who she had to destroy. Another message popped up in the email archive. Meeting tomorrow. Need to discuss timeline concern. She's becoming suspicious. Response. She won't see anything unless we let her. I laughed then. Not a hysterical laugh. No. A sharp, dry, newly born kind of laughter. Suspicious. I was blind. Grant sat beside me. You trusted people who should have protected you. That isn't blindness. That's faith. His voice softened. They're the ones who broke it. My eyes stung. Not with tears, but with something more volatile. Resolve. Another alert pinged on Thomas's phone. A reminder. Review financial transfer plan with E. I handed the phone to Grant, unable to look at another word. He scrolled for me as I pressed my hands into the mattress to ground myself. Meline. His voice dropped to a whisper. There's a spreadsheet. A what? A timeline. Goals. Projected wedding date as phase 1. My heart slowed, becoming heavy and mechanical. Read it to me, I said. He cleared his throat. Phase 1. Secure emotional commitment. Phase 2. Merge financial accounts before ceremony. Phase 3. Initiate asset transfer 6 months post-marriage. And Eliza? I asked. He swallowed. Note states, he requests reassurance. She wants confirmation of future role. I stared at him. She treated my marriage as a business transaction, I whispered. And he treated your life like a project plan, Grant said bitterly. Inside the bathroom, Eliza suddenly screamed. Thomas, tell her we were doing this for us. Tell her we deserve something, too. A low, broken sound left Grant's chest. She doesn't love anyone, he murmured. Not even herself. I stood and walked toward the bathroom door. Not to open it, no, but to listen. Thomas muttered, she froze our accounts. If she files anything, everything falls apart. Eliza's voice broke. What about the townhouse? What about the deposit? Townhouse. Deposit. Money. My life reduced to a line item in their future plans. I returned to the bedroom, calmer now than when I had walked away. A strange peace slid over me. Not forgiveness. Not numbness. Clarity. Grant, I whispered. This wasn't just cheating. It was a conspiracy. Yes, he said. All documented, all planned, and all exposed, I added. He nodded. We stood there together, two people torn apart by the same betrayal, and something shifted between us. Not romance, not attraction. Something quieter. A shared fight. A shared truth. What now? He asked. I looked at the locked bathroom door, hearing the sound of my sister's sobs, Thomas's frustration, both of them unraveling. Now we start my plan. By the way, if you're still with me, trying to untangle this mess, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because more unbelievable stories are definitely coming your way. Now, I said, we build everything they tried to destroy. He nodded slowly. I'm with you. And we make them accountable, I added. They won't see it coming, he said. I opened the notebook on my bedside table, blank pages staring up at me like an open future. I wrote, Step 1, document everything. Step 2, protect assets. Step 3, confront with evidence. Step 4, take back control. The pen didn't shake. Grant exhaled. Meline, you're stronger than you know. I didn't smile. Strength wasn't a feeling. It was a choice. A choice I had not been given the luxury of making until today. Behind the door, my sister cried harder. Thomas begged. Their voices no longer reached me. I closed the notebook and looked at Grant with a steadiness that surprised even me. They planned my destruction, I said quietly. So now we plan their downfall. He nodded once, firmly. Together. I turned toward the hallway, toward the muffled chaos behind the locked door, toward everything that had shattered me. And for the first time, I felt the pieces rearranging themselves, not into who I was, but into who I was meant to become. The sound behind the bathroom door had changed. It wasn't laughter anymore. It wasn't even pleading. It was panic, raw and rising, the kind that confirmed exactly how guilty they were. Thomas's voice cracked first, sharp and anxious. Madeline, you can't just keep us in here. Open this door. Eliza cried out right after him. Maddie, please. We need to explain. Grant and I stood on opposite sides of the hallway, the silence between us stronger than their noise. He looked at me as if waiting to see whether I would break, but there was nothing left in me to shatter. I had already broken once when I found them together. Everything after that was simply reconstruction. I lowered my gaze, pulled up the voice memo app on my phone, and pressed record. I set it down near the base of the door. Grant's eyebrows lifted. Good idea. If they're going to confess, I said softly, they're going to do it on tape. Inside, their argument grew louder. This is your fault. Eliza screeched. You said she'd never come home at lunch. I didn't know she'd forget her files. Thomas shouted back. You insisted on coming today. We could have waited. You said today was safe. You pushed me into this. Eliza. Grant's face twisted with disgust. They're turning on each other. I kept my gaze on the door, my voice low and even. Let them. Eliza suddenly wailed. If she tells Mom, if she tells anyone, I'll lose everything. Grant flinched. She's not worried about hurting us. She's worried about consequences. More frantic movement. Something fell over, a shampoo bottle, maybe, but the noise didn't matter. Their words did. Every syllable was another nail in their own coffin. Then Thomas shouted, "You promised we'd be careful. You told me she trusted you blindly." My stomach nodded, but my face stayed still. I leaned closer to the door and said, "You're right about one thing, Thomas." They both froze. The sudden silence was so absolute it vibrated. My voice was steady cold. "I trusted her and I trusted you. That's exactly why this is never going to end the way you want it to." Eliza whimpered. "Maddie, please." "We didn't mean stop," I cut in. "Save it. Your words don't matter anymore." I could almost feel them shrink on the other side of the wood. Grant stepped closer, arms folded tightly across his chest. "They deserve everything coming to them." "Eliza," he called sharply. "How long has this been going on?" She didn't answer at first, but then the sound of her crying deepened, almost childlike. "First, I don't know." "Don't lie," Grant said, his voice slicing through the air. "You lied to me for months. Don't do it again." Silence. "Then, 3 months." She choked out. Maybe more." Grant's jaw clenched. "More," he repeated under his breath, confirming what we already knew. I pushed away from the door and walked to the dresser where Thomas always left his wallet. I picked it up, opened it, and sifted through receipts. Not because I needed more evidence. I already had plenty. But because I wanted to know how far the deception went. Grant came to stand next to me. "Anything?" I pulled out a folded hotel receipt. "Lakeside Inn. Deluxe suite. 2 guests. Charge to tea, revel." Grant's jaw dropped. "That was the weekend she told me she had migraines." He let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "Migraines, right?" I didn't respond. I opened Thomas's wallet again and found another slip of paper. This one, a scribbled note in Eliza's handwriting. "Tomorrow lunch." Door unlocked. Grant stared at the note as if seeing the bones of his marriage laid bare. "She wrote reminders," he whispered. "God." Inside the bathroom, the tone changed again. No more yelling. Now it was whispering, fast, frantic, fearful. "She's going to ruin us," Thomas muttered. "You said we'd be safe," Eliza hissed. "You said shut up for once," he snapped. Grant lifted his head sharply, expression pinched. "They're scared. They don't know what we're planning." "Good," I murmured. Their panic fueled my strength. I stepped closer to the door again. "Eliza." Her breath hitched audibly. "Yes. Do you remember when you told me I was your best friend?" My voice was almost gentle. "Yes," she whispered. "I meant it." "You were lying," I said simply. She sobbed loudly. No, I wasn't. I was just confused. Thomas made me." "He didn't force you," Grant said sharply. "You went to him willingly." Her silence confirmed it. "We heard you," I added. "We heard everything." A choked gasp sounded from inside. Then frantic knocking. "You're recording us," Thomas yelled. "Meline, this is insane." "No," I replied. "This is clarity." Grant let out a breath, shaking his head with something like awe. "You're stronger than both of them combined." I didn't feel strong. I felt awake. Awaken in a way I hadn't been for years. I walked to the nightstand, opened a drawer, and pulled out my notebook. My safe place for lists, recipes, reminders. I flipped to a blank page and wrote down the first line, "Protect everything they tried to take." Grant watched me from the doorway. "What now?" "Now we gather all the evidence," I said. "We secure my accounts. We freeze anything they touched." And then I tapped the pencil on the page. "We let the truth do the rest." He nodded. "I'll stand with you." I believed him because, unlike Thomas and Eliza, he hadn't asked for this. He hadn't manipulated anyone. He was just another victim. Another person used like a pawn by the 2 people who should have cherished us. Suddenly, Eliza's voice broke through again. Hi, desperate, hysterical. "Thomas, tell her it wasn't serious. Tell her we were just confused." But Thomas's response was chilling in its honesty. "It was serious. Don't pretend now." Grant's eyes widened. "They're confessing everything." I pressed record on my second device, my tablet, and set it by the door as a backup. It wasn't love. Eliza screamed. It was supposed to be perfect after the inheritance. After we moved into the townhouse. Grant stiffened. "Townhouse?" "So, she admits it. And the inheritance? I murmured. She said it outright. Then Thomas yelled. We wouldn't have needed her money if you weren't so goddamn impulsive. The hallway went still. Grant whispered. They were counting on you financially. They were building a life on your assets. And yours, I added. He nodded once. What followed from inside the bathroom was the most revealing exchange yet. Eliza cried. You promised we'd get everything. You promised me we'd be together once she signed the papers. I promised you nothing. Thomas snapped. You were the one who kept pushing for more. You said I was better for you than she ever was. I said that to get you to stop crying. Grant looked stunned. They're eating each other alive. Good, I whispered. Let them tear the truth out of each other. He leaned against the wall, exhaling shakily. What's your next step? I met his eyes. Control. Of what? Everything. I turned away from the door toward the window where sunlight streamed into my bedroom, warm, golden, gentle against the storm buried inside me. I'm done being helpless, I said quietly. I'm done being the woman they thought they could blindfold. Grant stepped closer, voice steady. And what kind of woman are you now? I stared at the notebook page. The one who chooses what happens next. Behind me, Eliza slammed a hand against the door. Maddie, please don't do this. I'm your sister. I didn't turn. You were my sister, I said. But you stopped acting like one a long time ago. Her sobbing grew louder, messier, hollower. Thomas's muttered curses echoed faintly behind her. They were unraveling, and for the first time, I realized I no longer was. Grant looked at me with a mix of admiration and sorrow. What now? I closed the notebook, picking up my phone with calm certainty. Now, I said, I call my lawyer. Grant nodded. Good. Let's end this. And as I walked out of the bedroom, leaving the locked bathroom behind us, I felt a sensation that almost startled me. Strength. It didn't roar. It didn't burn. It simply settled into me like a truth I had been waiting my entire life to discover. Marjorie Quinn arrived at my house with the kind of calm presence that made you believe a storm could be navigated with a single conversation. She stepped inside without hesitation, her leather briefcase in hand, her silver hair pulled back neatly, her gaze sharp enough to slice through the panic simmering upstairs. Grant closed the door behind her. And for a moment, the world seemed to pause. Tell me everything, she said simply. I didn't waste a second. I handed her Thomas's phone, already open to the messages that had gutted my life. She adjusted her glasses and scanned each line with measured precision. Not reacting the way a friend might, with outrage or shock, but with the analytical mind of someone assembling a case brick by brick. Grant pointed upward. They're still in the bathroom, he said, locked in. Marjorie raised an eyebrow. Good. Less opportunity for them to destroy evidence. Inside the bathroom, the muffled argument intensified, as if they sensed reinforcements had arrived. Marjorie glanced at the ceiling and nodded approvingly. If they're panicking, they're confessing. Have you recorded anything? I gestured to the phone by the base of the door. Yes. And a backup? She asked. Grant lifted my tablet. It's running too. She smiled slightly. Excellent. She scrolled further through Thomas's messages, lingering on the inheritance references, then moving to the archived emails. When she reached the prenup draft, her expression hardened. This isn't just cheating, she said. This is premeditated financial exploitation. The words felt like validation and devastation at once. Grant paced a few steps, rubbing a hand over his jaw. We suspected, but hearing you say it, it's exactly what it looks like, she confirmed. They plan to merge accounts, funnel assets, and protect themselves legally while stripping you of your rights. My pulse thudded painfully. What do we do? We protect your inheritance first, she said. And we use their panic to secure more evidence. As if on cue, Eliza cried out from the bathroom, voice cracking like glass. Thomas, she's going to freeze everything. We'll lose the townhouse. Marjorie's eyebrows lifted. Townhouse. I nodded. They plan to move into one. On your money, Grant added bitterly. Marjorie tapped her pen against her notebook. We'll need to document that. We moved into my bedroom, and she set up her binder on the bed. The room, once a sanctuary, now felt like a war room. She opened to a blank page titled Emergency Asset Protection. Step 1, she said, freeze all shared or vulnerable accounts immediately. Step 2, file for an injunction preventing either party from accessing or transferring funds. Step 3, gather verbal admissions. Behind the door, Thomas shouted. Meline, listen to me. You're overreacting. This wasn't supposed to go this far. Marjorie smirked. Keep talking, she murmured under her breath. I sat beside her as she took notes. He had a spreadsheet, I whispered. He labeled my wedding as Phase 1. That will destroy him in court, she said calmly. Divorce judges despise calculated deceit, especially involving finances. She pulled up my banking app and guided me through securing each account: savings, checking, trust funds, investment portfolios. Every tap she directed felt like taking one more piece of my life back from him. Grant sat across from us, scrolling through additional records on Thomas's phone. Suddenly, he froze. There's more, he said, voice tightening. Marjorie and I both looked up. What is it? I asked. Grant turned the screen toward us. Eliza paid Thomas. He showed me a $3,500 withdrawal labeled consulting fee. My stomach dropped. She paid him. Marjorie clicked her pen. Financial collusion. This is gold. Grant's voice cracked. She paid him to betray you and to betray me. I swallowed hard. They were a team. A criminal one, Marjorie corrected. They exploited your trust for personal gain. This will not end well for them. Inside the bathroom, another argument erupted. You promised we'd get the money. Eliza sobbed. You said it would be easy. It was supposed to be. Thomas snapped. Until you demanded more. Marjorie nodded at the door. Move closer. Get this clearly on the recording. Grant placed the phone right beside the gap beneath the door, angling the microphone inward. Then came the next blow. Eliza screamed. What about the inheritance? You said she'd sign everything because she trusted you. Thomas hissed back. She would have if she hadn't shown up. Marjorie mouthed the word perfect and scribbled furiously on her pad. I felt sick, dizzy, grounded, and empowered all at once. It was surreal watching their conspiracy unravel, not with dramatic revelations, but with their own voices breaking under pressure. Marjorie straightened. Meline, I need you to clarify something. Your parents' estate. Did Eliza receive her portion? I shook my head. Not yet. My father wanted her to be more stable first. Marjorie leaned back. Then this explains her motive. Jealousy, desperation, entitlement. Combined with Thomas's greed, it became a perfect storm, Grant muttered. And we were the casualties. No, Marjorie corrected gently. Casualties don't rise. Survivors do. Something in me steadied. A sudden knock came from the door, so forceful it rattled the frame. Meline, Thomas shouted. Unlock this door. We can fix this. No, I said. He banged again. You don't understand. I understand exactly, I replied quietly. And so will the court. There was another stretch of frantic whispering inside. Then Eliza wailed. She's going to ruin us. She's going to ruin everything. Grant muttered. You did that yourselves. Marjorie stood and approached the door. Her expression composed and predatory. Thomas, she called, her tone sharp and professional. How long has this affair been happening? Silence. Then shuffling. Then Thomas's voice, dripping with fear and irritation. Who is that? I'm Meline's attorney, she said. And I need clarification. Did this affair begin 3 months ago or earlier? You can't use this in court, he shouted. We absolutely can, she replied coolly. You're speaking freely. Eliza screeched. Don't answer her. Thomas's voice rose. Fine. It started months ago. But she came on to me first. Eliza gasped. You liar. More fighting erupted. It was almost unbelievable that two people who had worked so hard to hide their betrayal could unravel so quickly when the truth cornered them. Marjorie stepped back, satisfied. That's enough for our purposes. Grant sank onto the edge of the bed. I can't believe this. She risked everything we built for him. And he risked everything for her, I added. And they both deserve what's coming, he said. Marjorie gathered her notes. The emergency injunction will prevent them from touching a single dollar of your estate or accounts. The audio evidence makes your position unshakable. And combining this with the messages and financial records, she looked at me with a firm nod. You're standing on solid ground. I exhaled a breath that felt like it carried months of tension. What do I do next? I asked. You decide how you want the story to end, she said softly. Do you want confrontation, quiet separation, public exposure? I glanced toward the bathroom door. A confrontation was inevitable. Thomas shouted again. Meline, let us out right now. Eliza whimpered. Please, Maddie, I'm your sister. That word didn't land the way it once did. Grant looked at me. What do you want, Meline? I closed the notebook in my lap. The pencil lines were still fresh, written moments ago, when I didn't yet know how deep their betrayal went. But now I was ready. I want them to face what they did, I said, fully, without excuses. Marjorie nodded approvingly. Then we'll set the stage. She closed her binder with a decisive snap. Once you sign the injunction, everything changes. Grant stood beside me. I'm with you every step. I looked at the door one last time, hearing the rising panic inside, the undoing of the lies they'd crafted so meticulously. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something powerful take root in my chest. Control. Strength. Choice. Let's do it, I said. And in the hallway, the house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment everything would shift. Grant stood beside me as Marjorie finished drafting the emergency injunction. The printer hummed in the corner of my bedroom, spitting out the pages that would change the course of everything Thomas and Eliza had planned. The faint scent of paper and ink filled the room, oddly grounding in the middle of chaos. When Marjorie handed me the packet, my hands didn't shake. Sign here, she said, tapping her pen on the first page. I read the header, Petition for Emergency Asset Protection, and a sense of control washed over me. Thomas had expected me to be naive, emotional, confused. But here I was, calmly signing a legal document that safeguarded everything he had been plotting to steal. Grant paced in front of the window, muttering under his breath. She really thought she could replace you. She thought she deserved your life. Not anymore, I said softly. When I finished signing, Marjorie gathered the papers neatly. I'll file this electronically from my office, she said. In 2 hours, everything will be frozen. He won't be able to access a dime. A bang hit the bathroom door, jarring the silence. Meline, Thomas shouted, his voice raw. If you freeze those accounts, you'll ruin us. Us. The word made my skin crawl. I stepped into the hallway, staring at the door with a strange calm. There is no us, I said. There never was. There was me and the two of you plotting behind my back. Grant joined me, his face tense. You ruined yourselves, he added sharply. Stop blaming her. Inside, Eliza sobbed louder. Grant, please think about the kids. I am, he said. For the first time in months, I actually am. Another knock sounded, not from the bathroom, but downstairs. 3 short, heavy raps against the front door. Marjorie lifted her head. Expecting someone? No, I said. Grant frowned. Maybe one of the neighbors saw my truck. We went down together. My heart thudded, not with fear, but anticipation. When I opened the door, Officer Dana Wells stood on my porch, her blue uniform crisp in the afternoon light. She was a familiar face, my neighborhood's community officer, someone who had helped coordinate our safety meetings. Meline, she greeted with a sympathetic smile. I'm sorry to bother you, but we got a call. A call? I repeated. She nodded. Someone inside your house reported they were being unlawfully detained. Grant's eyes widened. They called the police. Officer Wells held up a tablet. Anonymous report, but they said 2 people were locked in a bathroom and feared for their safety. I closed my eyes for a slow second, inhaling deeply. Of course, officer, I said calmly. Everything is under control, and they're not in danger. That's not what the caller says, she replied gently. I do need to check on them. Marjorie stepped forward like a shield. Officer Wells, my name is Marjorie Quinn, attorney at law. I represent Ms. Arden. There has been no unlawful detainment. Ms. Arden simply exercised her right to secure her home after discovering a domestic betrayal. Officer Wells blinked. Betrayal. Marjorie lowered her voice. Her fiancé and her sister are upstairs, in her bathroom, unclothed, having been caught in the middle of an affair. Officer Wells's jaw dropped slightly. Oh. Oh. Grant ran a hand through his hair. It's exactly what it sounds like. She pressed her lips together. Okay then. Why are they locked in? Because, Marjorie said coolly, they attempted to flee, destroy evidence, and manipulate the situation. My client acted to preserve safety and documentation until legal counsel arrived. Officer Wells nodded slowly. We've seen this before. Sadly, she sighed. I still need to confirm they're unharmed. Procedure. We let her upstairs. When we reached the bathroom door, Thomas immediately began pounding. Officer, thank God. She's keeping us trapped. You have to let us out. Eliza's voice echoed behind him. They're trying to ruin our lives. Officer Wells looked at me. Is the door locked? Yes, I said. And you'll unlock it when you're ready. She nodded. Please step back. I did. Grant stood beside me. Marjorie took notes. Officer Wells knocked firmly. This is the police. I'm opening the door. She motioned to me. I unlocked it and immediately stepped aside as she swung it open. Steam billowed out first. Then Thomas and Eliza, wrapped in towels, dripping, eyes wild like cornered animals, scrambling for sympathy. Thomas pointed at me instantly. Arrest her. She trapped us. Officer Wells held up one hand. Sir, calm down. Eliza stepped forward, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She's crazy. She locked us in. Dana's gaze flicked between them, unimpressed. You two look unharmed. Were you at any point threatened physically? No, Eliza muttered. Was there any attempt to harm you? No. Did she lock you in before or after discovering the affair? Dana asked pointedly. Their silence was answer enough. Dana exhaled slowly. You are not victims of a crime. You are victims of your own choices. Thomas stared at her in disbelief. She can't do this. She didn't, Dana said. You did. Grant let out a shaky breath. Marjorie spoke next. Officer, we would like them removed from the home so Ms. Arden can proceed with securing her property. Officer Wells nodded. Absolutely. Eliza's jaw dropped. Removed? You can't remove me from my sister's house. No, I said coldly. But I can ask you to leave. I have a right to be here, she snapped. This is my home, I reminded her. You forfeited your right to it when you chose to violate it. Thomas stepped toward me, eyes pleading. Meline, please don't do this. We can fix this. Officer Wells stepped between us. Back up. He froze. I stared at him, searching for the man I once loved. But all I saw was a stranger wrapped in a towel in fear. You didn't break my heart, I said. You freed me. His face fell. I turned to Eliza. You were my sister. I still am, she cried. No, I whispered. You're not. That broke her. She crumpled against the sink, sobbing. Marjorie cleared her throat. Officer, please escort them outside while they dress. We'll retrieve their clothes. Thomas glared. You can't make us leave. Officer Wells crossed her arms. Sir, the police can, or I can arrest you for disorderly conduct and trespassing at a residence you were explicitly told to vacate. They both fell silent. Minutes later, after Grant tossed them their clothing and the officer stood guard, Thomas and Eliza were ushered downstairs. Before leaving, Thomas looked back at me, eyes glassy. Meline, please. I love you. It was almost laughable. You loved what you thought you could take from me, I said. Not me. Grant stepped closer. A steady presence. Time to go, he told them. Officer Wells guided them out the door. When the door finally shut behind them, the house fell into a silence that rang with something new. Not betrayal, not anger, but reclamation. Marjorie placed a hand on my shoulder. You handled that with more dignity than they deserved. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt free. Grant's voice was soft when he spoke. You okay? I nodded. Not yet, but I will be. He offered a small, tired smile. We both will. Marjorie collected her things. Next step is filing the injunction and preparing for the fallout. Are you ready for what comes next? I looked toward the empty hallway. The bathroom door still ajar, steam fading like ghosts leaving the room. Yes, I said. And for the first time, the word felt like truth. I'm ready. The moment the front door shut behind Thomas and Eliza, the house exhaled like it had been holding its breath through every scream, every confession, every betrayal. Silence settled thick and trembling like dust after a collapse. I stood in the middle of the hallway, staring at the empty doorway where they'd just been escorted out, and I felt an unexpected wave of dizziness sweep through me. Grant noticed immediately. Sit, he said gently, guiding me to the living room sofa. I sank into the cushions, my body aware of 1,000 aches I hadn't felt until now. Adrenaline had carried me through the storm upstairs, through police intervention, through legal declarations, through betrayal laid bare. But now that the noise was gone, my body finally understood that it had survived something catastrophic. Grant crouched in front of me, searching my face. It's hitting you now, he said softly. It always hits after the shock fades. I breathed slowly, deliberately. I'm okay. You're in shock, he said again, more firmly. Anyone would be. Before I could respond, Marjorie walked in from the dining room. Her binder tucked beneath her arm. Meline, you need to hydrate, she instructed. Shock dehydrates you faster than heat. Grant immediately stood and went to the kitchen. I could hear the sink turn on, water filling a glass. When he returned, he pressed it into my hands like it was something fragile. I took a long sip. The water tasted like clarity. Marjorie sat across from me. Now that they're out, we move into phase 2. I blinked. Phase 2. She nodded. Public protection, professional protection, emotional insulation. This is where you fortify everything they attempted to shatter. Grant sat beside me, folding his hands. We're doing this together. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I just listened to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, to the soft creaking of the house settling, to the faint echo of my heartbeat as it found a calmer rhythm. Then I whispered, "Start with what I need to do next." Marjorie flipped open her binder. "We need to call your employer. Not because you did anything wrong, but because they need to understand why you won't be in for the remainder of the day and possibly tomorrow." "I'm not ready to explain this," I murmured. "You don't have to," she reassured me. "You just tell them you had a domestic emergency. The specifics are your choice." Grant nodded. "I'll call mine too. They should know." There was a subtle shift in the room when he said it. Not romantic, not intimate, but aligned. We were two people thrown into the same war now, planning strategy side by side. Marjorie continued. "Next, we secure your electronics, change passwords, enable two-factor authentication, and check for anything he may have accessed recently." My stomach dropped. He knew my passwords. Grant's eyes widened. All of them. I swallowed. We shared them. Not everything, but enough. Marjorie sighed. "Then, assume he has been monitoring your accounts for weeks." A chill ran down my spine. Weeks. Perhaps months. The realization hit me like cold water. Thomas hadn't been careless. He had been prepared, organized. Grant reached for my phone. "Let's fix that right now." We went through every app, every login, every piece of my digital life. Password by password, door by door. I locked Thomas out. With each change, I felt a piece of myself return. When we finished, I sat back against the sofa, exhausted, but lighter. "What about Eliza?" I whispered. Grant's expression tightened. "She'll go to her parents' house first. She'll cry. She'll twist the narrative. She'll say we overreacted. And they'll believe her," I said quietly. "Not for long," Marjorie interjected. "Because when they hear the truth, they'll have no choice but to understand." I rubbed my temples. "This is going to destroy my mother." Grant lowered his gaze. "It'll destroy my boys, too." I looked up sharply. "What do you tell them?" He shook his head slowly. "I don't know. They're too young for the whole truth. But they'll know something happened." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text message from Eliza. "Please, I need to talk to you. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry." Grant leaned over to read it. "Don't respond," he said quickly. Marjorie nodded. "Absolutely not. Anything you say can be twisted into leverage." Another message came. "We were stupid. Thomas said you'd forgive us. He said you'd understand." Please talk to me. I clenched the phone tightly, my breath catching. She thinks I'll forgive her. She thinks you're still the old you, Grant murmured. The one she could manipulate. That hit deeper than he knew. Another text. Mom is asking where I am. What do I tell her? I stared at the screen, feeling tears burn behind my eyes. Not because I missed her. Not because I felt sympathy. But because this was the sister who once braided my hair before school, who once held my hand at our parents' funeral. Now she wanted me to write her alibi. Grant took the phone gently. You don't owe her anything. Not an explanation, not a lie, not comfort. I nodded, but my throat felt tight. More messages came. Please don't tell anyone. We can fix this. You're my sister. Please don't ruin me. I need you. Grant whispered. She never needed you until you were the one thing that could save her. Marjorie stood. I'll take care of blocking their numbers. You can allow only emergency contacts. The moment she enabled the block, my phone fell silent. It was the quietest sound I'd ever heard. Grant placed a hand on my shoulder. She won't stop trying, but you have to. I looked at him, steady and unflinching. I will. A sudden knock rattled the front door again, sharp and impatient. Grant's posture stiffened. Stay here. But I stood. No, I need to face this. We walked together to the door. When I opened it, there stood my mother. Hair disheveled, eyes wild, face flushed with worry. Meline, she exclaimed, grabbing my arms. Eliza called me crying. She said something terrible happened. What did you do? What did you do? Not what did they do. Just like that, pain rose up my throat. Grant stepped between us slightly. Mrs. Arden, maybe this isn't. She held up a hand to silence him. I'm speaking to my daughter. What happened? Why did you throw your sister out of your home? I inhaled shakily, my chest tightening. She didn't tell you? I asked. No, my mother said, voice trembling. Just that you've made a mistake. A huge one. A bitter laugh escaped me. She made the mistake, Mom, not me. My mother blinked rapidly. Meline, she's your sister. She was, I corrected. Then she got into my bathtub with my fiancé. Silence fell. My mother's face crumpled, eyes widening in disbelief. She what? In my house? Today? Her knees nearly buckled. Grant caught her elbow, steadying her. Oh, God, she whispered. She didn't tell me that. Tears filled her eyes, blending grief and humiliation. Grant guided her inside, and I shut the door gently behind us. My mother collapsed onto the sofa, covering her face with her hands. How could she do this to you? To me? I sat beside her. Because she thought she'd get away with it. She looked up, eyes glassy. And Thomas planning to marry me and drain my inheritance. She stared, then whispered. You saved yourself. I had help, I said, glancing at Grant. He gave a small, tired nod. My mother exhaled shakily, gripping my hands. What do you need from me? The question stunned me. She had always taken Eliza's side, always defended her, always soothed her. But now she was looking at me first. I swallowed the rising emotion. Stand with me, I whispered. Don't let her rewrite the story. My mother nodded firmly. I will. I promise. It was the first time in years I believed her. Marjorie re-entered the room. We should prepare for tomorrow. There will be fallout, pushback, lies. Grant looked at me. We're ready. But I shook my head. No, I said quietly. We're not. Not yet. They both turned toward me. I need to confront her, I said. Face to face. Not in anger, not in screaming. But with truth. Grant frowned. Mads, I need her to hear it, I insisted. I need her to understand. Silence stretched, heavy but unbroken. Then Marjorie closed her binder. If that's what you choose, she said, we will prepare you. Grant placed a steadying hand on my back. And for the first time that day, I didn't feel like I was standing alone. Tomorrow, the real confrontation would begin. And this time, I would walk into it, aware, awake, and unbreakable. I barely slept that night. The house was quiet. Too quiet after the chaos that had shaken its walls only hours earlier. I lay awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the air conditioner and the occasional creak of wood settling. Everything felt foreign. My bedroom, my sheets, the faint trace of Thomas's cologne on the pillowcase beside me. It all felt like a crime scene rather than a home. At sunrise, I finally got up. My body felt heavy, but my mind was strangely clear. Today, I would confront my sister. Not with rage, not with screaming, but with the truth she had tried so hard to bury. Today, I would take back the narrative she had attempted to rewrite. Downstairs, I found Grant in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a cup of coffee. His eyes were tired, his shirt wrinkled, but he straightened the moment he saw me. "You didn't sleep," he said softly. "Neither did you." He didn't deny it. "You ready for this?" I inhaled deeply. Ready enough. We sat at the kitchen table, the morning light filtering through the blinds. For a moment, it felt almost normal, as if we were two friends having early breakfast rather than two betrayed partners preparing for emotional war. "Marjorie texted," Grant said, sliding his phone toward me. "She'll meet us at her office. She thinks it's smart to go over everything first, so you're calm and grounded before you face Eliza." I nodded. "She's right." Grant studied my face. "Mads, whatever happens today, remember that you don't owe Eliza forgiveness, or understanding, or compassion." A small smile tugged at my lips. "Then what do I owe her?" He hesitated. "Closure. On your terms." I looked down at my hands. Closure. I wasn't sure if I even knew what that meant anymore, but I knew I needed to see her, to look her in the eyes and understand how someone I grew up with, someone I shared bedrooms and secrets and meals and childhood dreams with, could betray me with such precision. "Where is she?" I asked. Grant exhaled. "At your mother's house. She slept there last night." Of course she did. Running home, crying in familiar arms, painting herself as a victim in a story where she had been the villain all along. I stood. "Let's go." The drive to Marjorie's office was quiet. Grant kept glancing at me like he was making sure I wasn't about to break. But I didn't break. I didn't shake. I didn't even cry. It was as if everything inside me had solidified overnight, cooled into something sharp and resolute. When we entered Marjorie's office, she was already waiting in the conference room with a stack of files and 2 cups of coffee. She didn't greet us with small talk or sympathy. She simply gestured for us to sit. "We prepare now," she said. Emotionally, legally, strategically. She began reviewing everything, every message, every recording, every detail of the affair and the financial schemes they had plotted. She treated their betrayal like evidence in a criminal case. And maybe that was what I needed. Someone who stripped the emotion away and left only the consequences. When she finished, she closed the binder and looked directly at me. "Meline, before we go any further, I need to ask you, why do you want to see your sister?" The question pierced deeper than expected. I swallowed. "Because I need her to hear the truth," I whispered. "Not the version she's trying to twist, not the story she's already telling. I need her to know the damage she caused." Marjorie nodded, but didn't soften. "And what do you want from her?" I didn't answer immediately. The truth was still taking shape inside me. "I want her to understand she didn't break me," I said finally. "She tried." They both tried. But she failed. Grant let out a breath, a small, proud sound. Marjorie closed her binder. "Then let's prepare for her manipulation." She listed everything. The tactics Eliza might use, the tears she would weaponize, the excuses she would cling to, the stories she would twist, the blame she would deflect. "You must remain neutral," Marjorie said. "If she senses guilt, she'll exploit it. If she senses doubt, she'll pounce. If she senses compassion, she'll rewrite the narrative. Keep your power." I nodded, absorbing every word. When we left the office, my heart hammered with an unfamiliar strength. Not anger, not revenge, but clarity. Grant drove us to my mother's home, a modest beige house with a white porch and a hydrangea bush that Eliza and I had planted as teenagers. The bush was blooming now, bright and alive, mocking the rot that had grown between us. As soon as we pulled up, my mother rushed out the front door, her face pale, her hands wrung together. "Meline," she breathed. "She's inside." "She's been crying all morning," Grant muttered. "I'm sure she has." I stepped forward. "Mom, I need space. Let me talk to her alone." She hesitated, torn between protecting one daughter and comforting the other. Finally, she nodded. I'll stay in the kitchen. Grant gripped my shoulder. I'll be right outside. When I entered the living room, Eliza sat on the couch, legs folded under her, wrapped in a blanket like a child. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked smaller than I remembered, broken, maybe, but not innocent. The moment she saw me, she burst into sobs. Maddie, please, can we talk? I stood across from her, not sitting. Not yet. Talk, I said. She wiped her face, her voice trembling. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for things to go that far. That far. I echoed. Eliza, you slept with my fiancé for months. You planned to take my inheritance. You plotted a future without me. She shook her head quickly, desperate. It wasn't like that. Thomas said. He said things. He said you didn't love him. He said you didn't appreciate him. And you believed him? I asked. She hesitated. And that hesitation was answer enough. Do you know what hurts the most? I continued. Not the affair. Not the deceit. Not the financial scheming. I stepped closer. It's that you didn't come to me. Not once. Not even as a sister. Not even as a human being. She covered her mouth with her hands, sobbing harder. I was hurting, she cried. I was lonely. You had everything. Your job, your friends, your future. And I had nothing. You were always the chosen one. My voice sharpened. So you took what was mine. She froze, her expression sliding into something darker. Guilt, envy, shame. No, she whispered. He chose me. The words hit the room like a slap. I stared at her, feeling something inside me go very still. Eliza, I said softly. He didn't choose you. He used you the same way you used him. You both used each other. But you don't get to rewrite the story now. She shook her head, squeezing her eyes shut. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want to fall in love with him. I blinked slowly. Love. Her lips trembled. I thought he loved me too. I let out a slow exhale. Then why was he planning to take my money? She flinched. Why was he writing prenups designed to trap me? Her breath hitched. Why was he telling you to pressure me, manipulate me? Why was he timing my schedule down to the minute so you could sneak into my home? She covered her ears. Stop. 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 No, I said quietly. You stop. She opened her eyes. Look at what you did, I whispered. Really? Look. Her gaze trembled, glistening. I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't care if you did. Silence stretched thick between us. Finally, she whispered. What do you want from me? The question I had asked myself all night finally had an answer. Honesty, I said. Not excuses, not tears. The truth. Her throat bobbed. I was jealous of you. My whole life. I felt like I was always living in your shadow. And when Thomas looked at me, it felt like for once someone saw me. My stomach twisted. Not with sympathy, but with understanding. And instead of getting help, instead of telling me how you felt, you destroyed what we had. I didn't mean to, she cried. But you did, I said softly. And now we live with the consequences. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at her, really looked, and realized something important. I don't hate you, I said. Her eyes widened with hope. But I don't trust you, and I don't owe you forgiveness. Her hope shattered like thin glass. Maddie, I'm not here to fix you, I said. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to tell you that I'm done letting you take from me. She dissolved into tears again. I stood. That's all I came to say. When I walked out of the living room, Grant was waiting, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes searching mine. You okay? He asked. I nodded slowly. Yes. For the first time. Yes. He offered his hand, and I took it. Not romantically, but in solidarity. Together, we walked out the front door, leaving my sister behind with the truth she could no longer twist. And for the first time in my life, I felt the world shift in my favor. Grant drove us back to my house in silence. But it wasn't the suffocating kind that crushes a person. It was the kind that lets everything rearrange itself quietly inside your chest. The kind that makes you realize confrontation doesn't always end in screaming. Sometimes it ends in truth, settling like dust after a demolition. When we pulled into my driveway, the afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the pavement. My home looked unchanged from the outside, but I knew better. The walls had heard too much. The floors had held too many lies. The bathroom upstairs still carried the steam and scent of betrayal. Grant cut the engine and rested his hands on the steering wheel, exhaling a long breath. You handled that better than anyone I know. I didn't feel strong, I admitted. Not really. He shook his head. Strength isn't feeling fearless. It's doing what you did anyway. His words sat warm in my chest. When we stepped inside, the emptiness felt different from yesterday's. Not hollow, not terrifying. Just clean, like something poisonous had finally been drained out. But our peace didn't last long. A car door slammed outside. Grant and I both turned toward the window. A dark gray sedan sat crooked in the driveway. Thomas's. The sight of it made the air tighten. He was coming back. Of course he was. Grant moved instinctively in front of me. Stay here. No, I said quietly. I'm done hiding. Before he could stop me, I opened the door. Thomas stood halfway up the walkway, haggard, eyes wild and sunken. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, who'd spent the night drowning in the wreckage he'd created. Meline, he breathed out, stepping closer. Thank God. We need to talk. Grant stepped forward too, shoulders squared. You shouldn't be here. Thomas ignored him, eyes fixed only on me. I made a mistake, he said quickly. A terrible one, I know. But everything's spiraling out of control. We can fix this if we just talk privately. The audacity would have been laughable if it weren't so familiar. There's nothing to fix, I said. No, don't say that. He rushed another step forward. I still love you. I never stopped loving you. Grant scoffed. You loved her so much you took her sister to bed. Thomas glared at him. This is between me and her. No, I said. It's between all of us now. He swallowed, eyes glassy. Look. Eliza was vulnerable. She was confused. I was trying to help her, but things escalated. I didn't plan it. Yes, you did, I said. I saw the messages, the spreadsheets, the prenup. You planned everything. He froze, just for a fraction of a second, but enough to reveal the truth. Then he shook his head desperately. It wasn't like that. You're misinterpreting things. I was trying to protect us. You know how stressful finances can be. Stop, I said sharply. He flinched at my tone. I'm not blind. I'm not stupid. And I'm done listening to you twist my reality. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Meline, please. That lawyer is getting in your head. She's protecting me, I corrected. Something you never intended to do. Grant folded his arms. Get to the point, Thomas. Why are you really here? Thomas looked at me with something brittle in his eyes. Fear. Guilt. Entitlement. The police took statements this morning. I need you to clarify that I wasn't holding anyone against their will. You weren't, I said. You were the one trying to escape. His shoulders sagged in relief. But that doesn't erase what you did. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. If you tell them everything, I could lose my job. Good. And my reputation. Good. And possibly be investigated for fraud. Very good. He reached out like he might touch my arm, but stopped when Grant moved between us. Meline, Thomas pleaded, voice breaking. Please don't ruin my life. I stared at him, feeling something hollow and cold settle in my chest. I'm not ruining your life. I'm letting the truth ruin your lies. He staggered back, as if the air itself rejected him. I messed up, he whispered. I messed up so badly. But I can change. I can do better. We can get married, just like we planned. I exhaled a bitter laugh. You were planning my financial demise, not our wedding. You're twisting it, he insisted. I was preparing, strategizing, thinking long-term. Without me, I said. About me. Against me. Grant shook his head slowly. You're unbelievable. Thomas turned to him, anger flashing. You think you're any better? You think you never made mistakes in your marriage? Grant's face hardened. I didn't sleep with her sister. The silence that followed was suffocating. Thomas looked back at me, desperation rising. I need you to believe me, he whispered. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said softly. Every day you lied. Every time you came home to me after being with her. Every time you looked me in the eye and said you loved me. He stepped forward, almost frantic now. We were good together. You were good at lying, I corrected. That's all. His voice cracked. You can't just throw away 3 years. You threw them away first, I said. He shook his head violently. No, no. Don't do this. Don't give up on us. Don't walk away. I stared at him, really seeing him. The manipulator, the planner, the coward. The man who had wanted my future, but not me. There is no us, I said quietly. There never was. Not in the way I believed. He sank onto the porch step, burying his face in his hands. What am I supposed to do now? Grant stepped closer to me, speaking before I could. You face the consequences, like everyone else. Thomas lifted his head, tears streaming down his face. I loved you, he whispered again. No, I whispered back. You loved the version of me who trusted you blindly. She's gone. He gasped like he'd been punched. I stepped back, closing the emotional distance between us like shutting a door. Leave, I said. Now. He stood slowly, trembling. Is this really it? Yes. He nodded once, a broken, defeated movement. I'll go. But this isn't fair. You're not being fair. Grant laughed quietly. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Thomas didn't answer. He walked down the driveway with heavy, uneven steps. When he reached his car, he turned back one last time. You'll regret this, he whispered. I didn't blink. No. I'll heal from it. He got into his car and drove away. The silence afterward felt like rain after a wildfire. Cool and cleansing. Grant exhaled. You did it. My throat tightened. It doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to, he said gently. It's supposed to feel true. We went inside, and I sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Grant disappeared into the kitchen, then returned with water. He didn't push. He didn't rush me. He just sat beside me, a steady presence in a day that had shaken more than I wanted to admit. After a long while, he spoke softly. You know what I admire most about you? I looked at him, surprised. You didn't let them break who you are, he said. You didn't scream. You didn't fall apart. You faced them with the truth. I swallowed hard. I didn't feel brave. That's exactly why you are, he replied. For the first time, I let my head rest against the back of the sofa. My eyes closed. My heart slowed. And for the first time since the bathroom door opened yesterday, I felt something quietly, tenderly hopeful. Freedom. Not from Thomas, not even from Eliza, but from the version of myself who once believed betrayal was the end. Now I knew better. It was the beginning. The morning after Thomas showed up on my doorstep, I woke with a strange sense of clarity. Not peace, that would come much later, but clarity. Sharp and purposeful, like stepping into cold water after hours of heat. I lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the house, the rustle of leaves against the window, the distant sound of a dog barking. Normal sounds, ordinary sounds, and yet none of them felt the same. Everything was different now. I got out of bed slowly, stretching muscles that felt sore from tension more than sleep. Downstairs, the faint clatter of dishes let me know Grant was already up. He'd stayed the night, not in a romantic way, but because neither of us trusted the quiet after what had happened, because the house felt too big, too vulnerable, too filled with echoes. When I walked into the kitchen, he stood at the stove making scrambled eggs, wearing a borrowed t-shirt of mine and looking more at home here than Thomas ever had. You're awake, he said, giving me a tired but warm smile. Barely, I replied. You should eat something. We've got a long day ahead. I slid into a chair at the table. The fallout, I guessed. He nodded. Marjorie texted me. A lot is coming. I didn't respond. My stomach churned, not from fear, but from anticipation. He set a plate in front of me. You need your strength. I picked up the fork, but didn't take a bite. My mind was already racing. What if Thomas tries something else? I asked quietly. What if he goes to my work or posts something online? Grant leaned against the counter. Then we deal with it. But he's too focused on saving himself right now to start a smear campaign. I looked up at him. You're sure? No, he admitted. But I know men like him. He'll try to charm his way out of consequences first. Anger comes later. A chill crept up my spine. He stepped closer. You're not alone. Something about the way he said it made my throat tighten. I nodded, unable to speak. Soon after, Marjorie arrived with her usual efficiency. Her binder under one arm, her blazer crisp. She stepped inside like she owned the oxygen in the room. We need to talk strategy, she said without preamble. Grant handed her coffee. She accepted it gratefully, then spread documents across my dining table. There will be a legal storm these next few weeks, she said. So, we need to prepare for every direction. I swallowed. Like what? She pointed at the first document. Thomas's employer may contact you. If he attempts to hide assets or falsify information, they'll likely begin an internal investigation. Another page. Eliza's family will push for reconciliation or damage control. Your mother is already torn. Your father's side will likely take your sister's, considering their history. Another page. Thomas may try to contest the injunction. He may beg. He may manipulate. He may threaten to sue for defamation. Grant clenched his jaw. He wouldn't dare. He would, Marjorie corrected. Because he's scared. I felt my breath thin. What do I do? She looked directly at me, her expression resolute. You remain consistent. You stick to facts. You stay grounded. Do not let them bait you. I nodded slowly. I could do that. I'd survived worse than words. But then her tone softened. There's something else. I tensed. What? We received an email this morning, she said, sliding her tablet toward me. My stomach flipped as I leaned in to read. It was from Thomas. Long, emotional, a rambling mess of apologies, explanations, excuses. Meline, I made a mistake. I was weak. I was confused. Please don't destroy my life over this. Please don't let your lawyer ruin me. We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll change. I'll do anything. He ended it with a sentence that made my skin crawl. You know I love you more than anyone ever will. I pushed the tablet away, nausea rising. Marjorie studied my reaction. Do you want me to block him on all channels? I hesitated. Part of me wants to read every word he writes so I know what he's planning. And the other part, she asked gently, hates the sound of his voice in my head. Grant placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Then let's silence him. I nodded. Marjorie tapped her screen. Done. She folded her hands. Today we finalized the separation paperwork. Financial freeze is active. Custody hearings for Grant will begin soon. And your sister, she'll likely attempt contact again. She already tried, I whispered. She asked if I could keep this quiet. Marjorie's eyebrows arched. Of course she did. Grant muttered. She's terrified of consequences. And accustomed to escaping them, Marjorie added. I looked down at my hands. I thought she loved me. Grant sat beside me. She loved how you made her feel. That's not the same. I didn't respond. The truth was too sharp. Just then, the doorbell rang. Grant stood instantly. Stay here. My heart jumped wildly. Do you think it could be anyone? He said, but let me check. Marjorie approached the doorway too, ready for battle with nothing but a binder and a brilliant legal mind. Grant peered through the peephole, then sighed. It's your mom. My stomach twisted. I stood slowly. I should talk to her. Do you want me with you? He asked. I shook my head. Let me try alone first. I opened the door. My mother stood there, wringing her hands, eyes swollen from crying. She pushed past me into the foyer before I could say anything. Meline, she whispered. We need to talk. I shut the door gently. Okay, what's wrong? She turned to me, her expression wavering. Your sister, she's not doing well. She's devastated. She barely slept. She hasn't eaten, she said. Her voice cracked. She said she doesn't want to live anymore. The words hit like a fist to my chest. Grant stepped instinctively. That's manipulation. My mother's head shot toward him. How dare you? No, I said gently. He's right. She blinked rapidly, confusion washing over her. This is what she does, Mom, I continued. She pushes until someone feels responsible for her emotions. She's your sister, my mother whispered. You two used to be inseparable. I swallowed the ache. And she betrayed me in the worst way possible. My mother trembled. She's ashamed. She's scared. She's hurting. So am I said quietly. But no one is rushing to protect me. She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Not the dependable daughter, not the problem solver, not the emotional caretaker. Just me. Meline, she said softly. I don't know how to navigate this. You're both my daughters. I know, I whispered, but only one of us destroyed the other. Her face folded. Tears welled. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. I'm sorry, she whispered into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes, absorbing the fragile warmth of her apology. Mom, I love you, but you cannot fix this. And you cannot ask me to be the one who carries her guilt. She nodded slowly. You're right. It was the first time she'd said that to me ever. When she left, Marjorie exhaled. That went better than expected. Grant squeezed my hand. You handled it perfectly. I didn't feel perfect. I felt bruised, but stronger. The rest of the afternoon passed in paperwork, calls, planning, preparing. By evening, when the sun dipped low and the sky poured amber light across my living room floor, I finally collapsed onto the couch. Grant sat across from me, watching me quietly. After a long moment, he spoke. Can I ask you something? Of course. What's the hardest part of all this? I stared at the ceiling, searching for the truth. Losing the illusion, I said. The illusion that my life was stable, that the people I loved were honest, that trust was simple. He nodded. And now? I turned to him. Now everything feels raw, but real. He smiled, soft, tired, genuine. Real is better. Even when it hurts. I didn't disagree. When the sky finally darkened and my house fell into quiet again, Grant stood, stretched, and said he should head home to check on his boys. Before he left, he paused at the door. You know, he said, this isn't the end of your story. I know. It's the beginning. I held his gaze for both of us. He smiled, then stepped out into the night. When the door closed behind him, I sat alone in the stillness of my house. A house no longer filled with betrayal or lies or manipulation. A house ready for rebuilding. A life ready for reclaiming. The storm had passed. Now came the rebuilding and the woman I would become next. 2 months later, I walked into my home and didn't flinch. The shadows didn't carry ghosts. The upstairs bathroom didn't sting with memory. The house didn't feel hostile or wounded or bruised. It felt like mine, quiet, sunlit, and whole. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces. It came the day Thomas's injunction was upheld in court. He sat across the room, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. He tried to catch my gaze, but I didn't let him. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. When the judge declared that his financial manipulation was documented and that proceedings would move forward in my favor, I felt a weight lift. Not because he was losing, but because I was finally free. It came the day my sister left town. My mother called me, her voice trembling as she explained that Eliza needed distance, reflection, help. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't ask. I simply wished her well. I hoped she would learn to face her shadows instead of casting them onto me. It came the day Grant's custody hearing ended with full primary custody awarded to him. I watched him walk out of that courthouse with tears in his eyes, relief, victory, heartbreak, all tangled together. His boys ran into his arms, and he held them like they were the only stable thing he'd ever known. Healing came in slow breaths, long walks, coffee dates with friends who refused to let me disappear, and sessions with a therapist who helped me untangle the knots of betrayal left behind. It came in repainting my bedroom, replacing the towels, getting rid of the sheets Thomas had once slept on. It came in laughter, quiet at first, then real. And most unexpectedly, it came in the form of a man who had walked through his own version of hell beside me. Grant and I didn't rush anything. We didn't force anything. For the first few weeks after the dust settled, we spoke every day about court documents, about life, about pain we never imagined we'd share. He helped fix my broken fence one Saturday morning, and I helped him assemble bunk beds for his boys the following weekend. We sat on his back porch sipping beer, talking about the future, like two people who had once believed theirs had ended. One evening, after a long day of sorting through paperwork, he drove me home. We stood on my porch, the air warm and quiet. He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, slow, careful, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. He kissed me gently, the way someone touches something they're afraid to break. And for the first time in a long time, I felt wanted. Not used, not manipulated, not taken for granted. Wanted. But this isn't a love story. Not yet. This is a rebirth story. A rebuilding story. The kind of story where the woman who once walked in on her fiancé and her sister in her bathtub eventually learns that the moment she thought destroyed her was actually the moment that saved her. Today, as I stand in my kitchen stirring tea, sunlight pooling across the counter, I realize something important. Betrayal didn't define me. Survival did. And now freedom does. I learned that love isn't blind trust. It's mutual respect. Partnerships aren't built on sacrifice. They're built on generosity and honesty. And peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you reclaim one choice at a time. Eliza's absence is quiet. Thomas's consequences continue to unfold. Grant's life is stabilizing into something strong and steady. And I finally become someone I recognize, someone I'm proud of, someone who isn't afraid of beginnings anymore. I walk through each room of my house and feel no pain, only gratitude, only strength, only the echo of a woman who stepped into fire and came out forged. I open the back door, breathing in the cool evening air. My phone buzzes on the counter. A message from Grant. Dinner tonight. Something simple. Or we can just talk. Either way, I'd like to see you. I smile, typing back a yes that feels warm and honest. No fear, no hesitation, just possibility. Before heading out, I pause in the doorway and glance upstairs toward the bathroom where everything ended. And then I close the door softly behind me, knowing that it's no longer a place of brokenness. It's just a room. My life isn't trapped inside it anymore, and neither am I. Thank you so much for watching. What about you? Have you ever had a moment where you realized an ending was actually a powerful new beginning? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know. ***.